Hi everybody and welcome back to the FPL Family YouTube channel. I'm Sam and today we are going to be taking a look at some Premier League new signings. Now of course there are going to be lots hopefully of new signings this summer and there haven't already been more than I can fit into this video. So we are going to have a few of these new signing videos between now and the start of the season when we take a look at some of the newest names arriving in the Premier League and whether we think that they are worth investment from an FPL perspective. So I'm going to start with 5 today. Jadon Sancho is not one of them. He'll be coming up in the next video because he signed a little bit after I'd done the prep for this video. But we're going to start off by having a little look at one of Leicester City's new arrivals in Patson Daka. Now, obviously, he has arrived at Leicester City and has been priced at the same price as FPL favourite from last time around, Iheanacho. Now, he signed from Red Bull Salzburg, is an international for Zambia. In fact, he made his debut for them in 2015 at the age of just 16. During the 1920 season, he made 31 league appearances. And in fact, he also played in all of Salzburg's 6 Champions League group stage fixtures. So he has a lot of good experience and a lot of good pedigree, even though, of course, he is still young. In those 31 appearances then last time around, he got 24 goals and 8 assists, averaging a goal every 78 minutes across the league. This was improved upon in the 2020-21 season where he averaged a goal every 72 minutes, 27 goals and 7 assists for him last time around, where he was the top scorer in the Austrian Bundesliga and he was also the league's player of the season. He is known for his remarkable pace, very speedy, very quick, and also very clinical in front of goal. I think the problem I have with him is that the underlying stats are great, and as you can see from the heat map, he is getting into all the right places. He's not afraid to drop deep. He's not afraid to get involved and get involved in the action and come to get the ball if needed. But you'll see the majority of his kind of red heat map in and around that penalty box, which is also important. But he is arriving at a Leicester City side as effectively the third striker now with Vardy, Iheanacho and Daka. Now, we saw last time around that Iheanacho got a lot of extended game time in that Leicester City side, but a lot of the time that was because of an injury to other key assets. We had Maddison out for a long period of time, we had Harvey Barnes out for a really long period of time, and as a result of that, Leicester City were kind of using peripheral players, or players that in the past anyway had been peripheral players. Iheanacho came in and did an absolutely sterling job in that Leicester City side, and as a result, we all owned him in FPL as well towards the back end of the season. It feels to me like Daka has come in as a long-term replacement for Jamie Vardy. What does that mean for him though today and in terms of the 21-22 season? How many minutes are we going to see him get? Now, I said in the Leicester City deep dive a few weeks ago that they have obviously got Europa League football to play this time around, and so there will be more game time and therefore more spread potentially and more availability for these players to play. We also talked before about Jamie Vardy and his age and whether he's got it in him to play in the Premier League, the Europa League, the FA Cup, the League Cup and all of those other fixtures that entails if they go on extended runs in these different competitions. So we may see Daka getting some game time. My concern with him is, are we going to get enough game time to make it worth investing 7.5 million? Now, I'm going to say something that I think everybody hates from an FPL perspective, but for me, we're going to have to wait and see with Daka. He is one of those players that could be fantastic in the Premier League, but could it be that he's fantastic in the Premier League next season or the season after, as opposed to this one that we've got coming up? I think there is potential that he could be one of those kind of players, which would be frustrating if you invest 7.5 million in him. I think if you're going to invest 7.5 in a Leicester City forward, you're going to go Iheanacho over him. But even then, there's a lot of rotation risk with Harvey Barnes back now. Somebody that there's definitely not any rotation risk and that I am super excited about seeing in the Premier League again this season is Emi Buendia. Obviously has now left Norwich, Premier League Norwich, and gone to Aston Villa, who I think is a very, very shrewd move for him. When we have a little look at the Aston Villa fixtures, they are really quite nice to start the season. So Watford, Newcastle, Brentford, then there's Chelsea, which is tough, Everton, United, Spurs. Those are 4 difficult fixtures, and then Wolves and Arsenal. So those opening 3 games of the season are probably where we're going to want to be investing from an Aston Villa perspective. But Buendia has already started the season with a bang. Couple of goals in pre-season, assisting Ollie Watkins. So that relationship already seems to be building. And when we have a little look at him last time around, we can see how his underlying stats are really great. Now, we have to, and we'll talk about a little bit about how that transpired when he came up last time around, but certainly his championship last season, 39 appearances, 15 goals, 16 assists, 122 chances created. That 30 goal and assist combination was the best across the championship last time, in terms of enabling him to win the championship player of the season for last year. 15 goals was 7th best in the league. 16 assists was the best across the league. 111 shots, 6th best across the championship last season. 38 shots on target, that was the 7th best across the championship. As I've mentioned, that 122 chances created, that's the best. And that included 29 set pieces. Now, we are yet to see whether he's going to be on set pieces for Aston Villa, because they do have a number of really good set piece takers. And actually, maybe some of that will depend upon what happens with Grealish this summer. But even if those set pieces aren't in his locker going into this Aston Villa squad, those chances created still looks like a really nice number. 36 more key passes, than any other championship player last season. What's really interesting is that when we break down those shots, just 3 of his 111 shots were from inside the 6-yard box, which I find absolutely fascinating. So he is getting them away from further out, not afraid to kind of shoot on sight. Last time, when we have a little look in when he came up to the Premier League, there's a lot of rhetoric about how, I think probably because Norwich weren't as good as we were necessarily hoping or expecting they would be, that Buendia didn't necessarily get the level of stats that we're seeing from the Championship. However, when we have a little look at chances created last time around, so back in the 1920 season when he was playing for Norwich in the Premier League, he was 3rd for chances created with 83. Only KDB and Grealish had more than he did. So KDB had 136, which that was his phenomenal season, and Grealish had 91. I think at 6.5 million, Buendia is going to be one of those that if we don't own him going into those opening 3 game weeks, it could really hurt us, because those fixtures, Watford, Newcastle, Brentford, look really positive. And if you are planning an early wildcard in or around game week 3 or 4, Buendia could be the perfect person to own for those opening game weeks and then move on. Of course, what's going to happen is going to be dependent upon what happens potentially with Grealish. However, game time is assured in this side, and I think he is going to be one of Aston Villa's standout players for this season. And if they play like they did last season, he'll be one of the standout FPL picks of the year. Off to Crystal Palace now for Olise. Now he comes into the game at 5.5 million, so quite nice and cheap. He's only 19 years old and was Vieira's first signing during his managerial spell at Crystal Palace. Last season he managed 19 goals for Reading in the Championship, 18 appearances for them. In the 2021 season, he also managed 12 assists on top of those 19 goals. So really positive stats. And in fact, he was the EFL Young Player of the Season. He was also included in the Championship Team of the Season last year. And he was in the PFA's Championship Team of the Season last time around. When we have a little look at him over the course of the whole season as a whole then, 37 appearances during the 21-22 season, 3,264 minutes. So, of course, that's building upon what we said from the 1920 season when he made 18 appearances. So 18 appearances in 1920, up to 37 appearances in 2021. So significant jump in terms of his game time, because he proved himself to be a really valuable asset to Reading. Last time around, 7 goals, 12 assists, 1.6 shots per game, 1.9 key passes per game, and 1.4 crosses per game. Only 3 Championship players created more chances than he did last time around. He had 84 chances created. Of those, 40 were from set pieces. Again, much like I said about Buendia, let's see if he's on set pieces again this time around for his new club. But if he is, that could be positive. 20 of his 71 20 of his 71 shots came from outside of the box. He is mostly left-footed. Likes to play, or did play last season for Reading, in behind the striker in kind of that number 10 role. Now, one thing that we will say about Crystal Palace here is that, of course, last season their possession stats were dreadful. They tried to play more kind of counter-attacking, non-possession football, and that's not really going to suit this guy. He's going to want to be in a possession-based team, but Vieira has talked about the change that he wants to create at Crystal Palace. He wants more possession football, more controlling the ball, more passing through midfield and up top. So these heat maps suggest that Olise could be a really good option in terms of getting that through Crystal Palace. And if that happens at 5.5 million, he's a really nice cheap way in terms of buying into a cheap midfielder who looks like he's going to get regular game time at his new club. Let's have a little look then at Leeds United and Junior Firpo. So 5 million. Now he is coming into the game at 0.5 more than any other Leeds defender. They signed him on the back of Alioski leaving the club. So what we need to kind of work out is, yes, he looks like a good option. I think that is undeniable, but is he worth 0.5 more than you would pay for, say, one of the other Leeds defenders? Why not buy Ayling at 4.5, for example? So this guy's come from Barcelona, made 41 appearances in all competitions for those over the last 2 seasons with 2 goals and 2 assists. It never really got going for him at Barcelona, but I've put up his Betis stats here in the 18-19 season. So when he was regularly starting, he made 29 appearances, got 3 goals and 5 assists, averaging 0.88 shots per 90. And then, of course, his Barcelona stats were significantly less. You can see where he is in terms of his position. Really, really does like to hug that touchline. But let's not forget he is a defender. So these don't sound great in comparison to the attacking stats that we've just heard for the likes of Buendia and Olise, even Daka. But of course, we're talking about a defender here. He is very, very much attack-minded, so he's going to fit in well to that Leeds United defence because, let's be honest, that's what they all like to do. He could offer a really good threat down that left-hand side. Very much a high-press player, very much a kind of get-out. And I think in terms of the break, he could be incredibly influential. I think when we have a little look at him, in comparison to his old or his new teammates at Leeds, he is only bettered by Dallas in terms of his underlying stats. Now, of course, Dallas was basically playing as a midfielder and he was just wrongly positioned in the game. So it's no surprise to see Dallas get better underlying stats than him. But for a defender to only be bettered by Dallas, that looks quite impressive. And he is obviously therefore rated higher than all of the other Leicester City defenders. And that's probably why we're coming in at 0.5 more expensive. Ayling's XG kind of last time around was Ayling's XGI last time around was 4.90, but he didn't get a single attacking return. So his XG stats were looking promising, but there was nothing to show from it from an FPL perspective. Firpo got more shots and more key passes than Ayling did. I think the decision with these two comes. I think they both make good FPL options is my honest response to both of them. But I think if you go Firpo, you basically have to play him. You can't really have him as a rotating player because there's so many great options at 4.5. So if you're going to go Firpo, you have to play him pretty much most games throughout the season. Whereas I think with Ayling, it's much easier to bench him and have him as that kind of rotating option in defence. So do I think he's worth 0.5 more? Maybe yes, in terms of the attacking threat that he creates. But could you better him in some games by playing one of your 4.5 rotatings with Ayling and leaving Ayling on the bench? Yes, I think you probably could. And therefore, I think for me, I'll save the 0.5 and I'll stick with Ayling, although I do think that this guy is one to watch. Let's stay at Leeds. Now, this one is a new signing, of course, because he did arrive on a permanent this summer, but he was there last season on loan from Manchester City, and we can see his stats there from the Premier League season last time around. 36 appearances, 8 goals, 10 assists, and an XGI of 10.87. He got 18 goal involvements last season, which was 2 more than Rafinha, who, of course, is priced this time around at 0.5 more than Harrison is. He was tied second for goals at Leeds with Dallas. Only Bamford had more than he did. He was second for assists with 10, tied with Rafinha. Only Bamford had more than he did. He got 11 clean sheet points last season. He created 10 big chances. Only Rafinha created more than he did. He was second across the Leeds team for XA at 4.99. Only Rafinha had more. Second for XG at Leeds United at 5.88. Only Bamford had more. And he was third for XGI, as I mentioned, at 10.87. Only Bamford and Rafinha had more. He also received more passes in the final third than any other Leeds player. This guy, I think, is an absolute differential, jammy pick at its best. Most people are talking about Rafinha. I've spent a lot of time talking about Rafinha, but 0.5 million is actually quite a lot. And in terms of what we were saying before about Firpo and Ailing, we have the same decision to make in terms of Harrison and Rafinha. Rafinha's underlying stats are obviously excellent. He is a really talented player, but Harrison is making up for that in nearly all areas. And if you are able to save 0.5, that is the difference between saying going Van Dijk and going Robertson at Liverpool. It is the difference between some significant improvements across the rest of your team. It enables you to kind of get that extra player, extra premium pick potentially. If you go for Ailing and Harrison over going for, say, Firpo and Rafinha, that's a whole million. And a whole million makes a big difference to your budget. So for me, looking at his heat map, looking at his underlying stats, looking at the fact that he's on corners and set pieces for Leeds United as well, I think we've got a really, really nice cheap option here. The significant percentage ownerships for Harrison and Rafinha, the difference is marked at the moment. And if you're brave, and I think I'm going to do this, I'm going to go Harrison over Rafinha for the new season. That's it for our first batch of new transfers, new signings. We're going to have another new signings video coming up on the channel very, very shortly, looking at some of the other new arrivals, including, of course, Manchester United finally getting Jadon Sancho over the line. If you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and leave me a comment in the descriptions below to let me know which of the new signings you think you might invest in for the new season. Thanks, guys.